Hey Bays, it's Bailey with another speed build. So, at the end of July, the simmer MAIA Makes put out a build challenge where the goal is to build a room that essentially conveys a story, and then all the rooms that win the challenge are going to be arranged on a bookshelf. And I thought this was absolutely adorable, so I knew I had to try it. So I struggled with this build a little bit at first, probably because the theme was so open-ended. I tend to do best when I have enough structure to direct my ideas, but then enough freedom within that structure to kind of explore my creativity and just see where it takes me within that framework. But this was a very open-ended challenge, so trying to just come up with something out of nothing was a little difficult for me. But one of my first ideas was to recreate the wedding that I always wanted but never got, which was medieval fantasy themed. Yes, I was that person. I wanted a Lord of the Rings wedding, or at least a Ren Fair wedding. And I thought, considering all of the old-timey English village items that came with cottage living, I thought this would be a good opportunity to attempt that. So I did not record my first attempt because I am still very new at navigating the debug menu, and I knew it was going to take me a very long time to go through the catalog and the debug items and try and find things that would work with the vision I was kind of developing. And I was right. It took a very long time to sift through things, and I ended up making a big mess, and I abandoned it because it got very out of hand. But I find that I tend to do well when I start over and kind of scale back and look at what I was doing that wasn't working so that I can make changes. And the end result it probably isn't as creative as the other one was, but I'm still, I don't know if I'd say I'm happy with it. I still think we've accomplished something here. And hopefully, hopefully you can all see what I was going for. So anyway, the idea that I had in mind, it was originally going to be like a medieval village square, but when I tried to do that the first time, I ended up having to scale things down so much that it became very unwieldy to try and size down and place everything, especially since I was working with so much debug, and the scaling just ended up being very strange. So instead of trying to recreate the entire village square, I scaled down to this kind of courtyard in between what would be like the palace or guardhouse wall and just a house in the village. And so we put all of the wedding accoutrement in there. We have the little arch. I have this little fountain or not fountain, but little pool where you imagine the laundresses would go and do the wash. There's some nice plants up on the walls. And we have this fire pit so they can roast meat or something. Oh, God, when I was looking into wedding plans and I was still thinking I wanted this medieval wedding, I was looking into caterers and I found one that they essentially just like set up this giant fire pit and the spit, and you just roast like pigs and other kinds of meats on it. I'm like, oh, this looks so cool, but it's so expensive and I definitely can't afford it. Oh, God. Weddings in the United States are so expensive. It's insane. The whole industry is predatory, and it kind of disgusts me. It's really sad just how much these vendors will charge people, which that's not to say that vendors, especially of like artistic skills and services, shouldn't charge a good amount for their craft. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the wedding industry is just nuts, and the expectations that are put on people, especially young girls, to have like this picture perfect wedding that Yeah, in the US, it's not unheard of to hear people spending upwards of $30,000 on a wedding. And there's also the stigma for just engagement where men are kind of pressured into spending. I think, what was it? It was, I don't remember. There was an actual guideline for how much you're supposed to spend on an engagement ring, and it was something outrageous, like a quarter of your year's salary or something like that. Like on an engagement ring, I just can't even fathom A, having that much money to spend on one thing, and B, expecting somebody to spend that much on me for one thing that isn't like, I don't know, like an experience type thing for an actual physical object that isn't a car or a house or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just cynical in my old age, but I don't know. But yeah, I was that girl who had dreamed of like the fairy tale weddings, and you know, the more I thought about it, the more I realized like, okay, why do I need this? And is the joy that I'm going to get out of it, does that outweigh the amount of stress it's going to cause me before, during, and after? I don't know. It's just something to think about. But we've gotten very off topic here from this build. So, an image that's been stuck in my head recently, and I've done a couple of builds now that I've featured this and my Fall Festival build, is these little carts from the debug menu and thinking of them like full of produce. I don't know why that image appeals to me so much. It's probably the New Englander who misses farmers markets in me. But I just thought about like, because you think of like village markets and seeing those carts full of produce, and I kind of wanted to incorporate that, but with the food that you'd have at the wedding. I thought that was kind of a neat idea. I was also very stubbornly attached to the idea of keeping this laundry day wash tub on the wall. It made me think of that scene from Beauty and the Beast, like the Belle just like reading next to the well, singing her daily mean song about the villagers, and then the washerwoman is like washing her clothes in the well or water, whatever it was, and then all the sheep come around. But I ended up getting rid of it because I realized that putting the half wall there the way I had meant that it was going to turn that section into a new room, which was going to mess up me saving it to the gallery. So I ended up just taking out the wall altogether and replacing it with stones. And then I couldn't really get the wash pail to balance very well, so I had to take it out, which made me very sad. But I do keep the little bucket. I like that bucket. I think it's just very sweet and fits a lot of these old-timey looking builds. Another thing I struggled with in this is something I struggle with in everything that I build is lighting. I never know what to do for lighting because you have to balance functionality with aesthetics, and a lot of the aesthetically pleasing lights in The Sims 4 just don't let enough light to make for a functional build. I mean, just look at my my sunrise cottage for cottage bays. There's so few options for off-the-grid lighting that the house is very dark, and I've just been very lucky that for whatever reason, it doesn't rain in the Bramblewood, at least not in my save file, even though I checked and made sure that seasons and rain were turned on, but, you know, whatever. But anyway, I was convinced that there were, like, paper lanterns that could have looked slightly medieval. I don't think the ones that I chose do, but it was as close as I could get without it looking really dumb. So I guess the idea isn't necessarily that they're strictly in a medieval setting. It's just kind of medieval themed. I don't know. I I feel like I didn't have the right items to bring this vision to life. But I still think I would be very happy to get married in this place. I think it would make for a very cute little intimate setting for a wedding. Provided that arch is functional, I don't believe it is. And of course, it is sized down, so your Sim standing next to it will look large. But if I did take this and make it larger into like a full-sized alley, like, you know, scale the whole thing up to what it should be, I think it would be a really cute place to have a wedding, especially for your old-timey fantasy save files. So I wouldn't recommend downloading this build for that purpose, but please, by all means, adapt it in whichever way you choose. As you can see from my struggles to find a wedding cake that actually functioned as a single cake, there were a couple final details I wasn't able to include straight from Build By, so I ended up creating the couple that would be utilizing this space and had them make a turkey and a cake to put on those carts to feed all their wedding guests. So let's close out with some screenshots. You'll see the happy couple in their little venue. And I hope you enjoyed this build. And, you know, thanks for watching. Like if you did, subscribe if you wanna. But most importantly, babes, take care of yourselves out there. Love you. Mwah.